Yeah. If I knew in the end it would be worthwhile, but no, I've done it. I've done it before, and I was hoping that maybe, it's not happening.
Ready?
Yep. Okay, we'll call this council work session to order. It's Wednesday, February 15th. The time is 2 p.m. And before I open it up, we have a new dialogue. Now it is time for visitor comment. Visitor comment period is an essential part of local government meetings. Each person has 3 minutes to speak. The city council will take input into consideration. However, in observance of Oregon open meeting laws, this isn't time for dialogue, but rather time for us to listen to you. Our administrator and our reporter are taking notes of action if needed. Thank you for participating in visitor comments. And now if you'd like to speak, come on up and state your name for the record, and we'll give Margaret a little bit more than 3 minutes.
Very kind.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mayor. Council, I really appreciate it. And I'd also like to, this is for you to look through. I'd like you to see the breadth of the work that we've created. Let me introduce music composer Kevin Bryant Lay. And this is my husband, Brian Trinchard Smith, who financed the commission of the work years ago. So I'm just going to, in the interest of efficiency.
Could you introduce yourself as well?
Oh, sorry. I'm Margaret Trinchard Smith. I live in Scappoose. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for seeing us. In the interest of efficiency and your time, I'll just read my statement. All right, so dear Mayor Scholl and St. Helens City Council. For more than 5 years, the Columbia Chorale of Oregon has fostered a full-length original work, The Wisdom of Columbia County, with music by composer Kevin Bryant Lay. The work tells a history of the county in prose and song. It will have its world premiere in the county on June 16th, 2023 at Scappoose High School auditorium. Senator Ron Wyden has expressed interest in the intention, in fact, of coming to that performance. And couldn't tell you this a few weeks ago at Senator Wyden's town hall, but the Noontime Kiwanis Club of St. Helens is making the Wisdom of Columbia County the theme of its parade this year on the following day. So the floats will be historic. And anyway, we're that committee, and we are combining our efforts and trying to coordinate how that will work out. But there's more. Our district director of the Columbia Chorale, Alice Rice Boyer, because of her merit in the world of choral music, was asked to conduct a guest performance at Carnegie Hall. And now they expected her to say, hey, would you please do Brahms or something? And she said, we have just completed an original work about our county. It's a new work. Would you please look at this? And they said, we don't do that. She said, may I send this to you? They vetted Kevin's music, which is sublime, and deemed it worthy of the Perlman stage at Carnegie Hall. So on May 27th, 2024, it will be performed at Carnegie Hall. We've been spreading the word and raising funds, but remain in great need. Production costs for both concerts are considerable. Also, our intention is to send high school students from our county, from each of the townships within the county, to Carnegie Hall. We just raised $10,000 for that from the Ford Family Foundation. We had expected more. So in panic, I thought I will appeal to the City Council of St. Helens. Anyway, so we're appealing to you for funds. If you could help us financially, obviously you will be cited as a sponsor and earn our eternal gratitude for what that's worth. Anyway, Among our aims in creating this work has been the intention to brand Columbia County positively, helping to make it a destination for cultural tourism. I deliberately embedded Columbia County in the title of this work. I wrote the words, the libretto is behind the front sheet. I wanted you to have the libretto, each one of you, because I want you to know what you're getting behind if you do get behind this. I hope you find our messages positive. I think you will. And with that, thank you again, and turn it over to the composer Kevin Bryant because he wants to give the mayor a gift.
It's hard to add to that. You get the idea, but I wanted to present a score to you.
Yeah.
And it's, and
I would
feel free to
agree.
sing it and feel free to come join us on the stage. Even in New York, that would be awesome. We have really singers, it's gonna be really quite fun. Like everyone to be.
Not much of a singer, but
Yeah, our artistic director is quite talented at bringing out music in everybody. Alice is really talented to get people who say, I can't sing, to finding out they have a great voice sometimes. She's good at that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you for presenting today, yeah.
Thank you, council members. Thank you, Mayor Shaw.
Yes.
Great.
Feels easy.
Oh, I-
great.
I'll start practicing tomorrow.
all right.
Tomorrow never comes.
Oh, yeah, I had one word.
Sure.
One of my reasons for, supporting the project and announcing it was that I thought it was a great sort of unifier for a community to have a choir sing about the joys and history of a great rural area. And what I hope is that the success of this presentation at Carnegie Hall will result in this work being adopted by other countries throughout Oregon and also throughout rural America. So I have a wider sort of global reason for wanting this to happen. Because, my politics is the politics of communication.
Thank you.
Is this a place? Oh, no, it's not a place to ask for questions from you, right?
You can ask a question.
I mean, do you have any questions for us? I mean, before we disappear?
I have one clarification. You said you raised 10,000, but then they need much more. Is there a target that you're looking for?
From you or generally?
General.
We have several versions of the budget that, it's like an onion. The core of the budget is about $75,000. But beyond that, if we were to get all of our bells and whistles, it would be $161,000 and change. So,
And what's your
it depends on, for the inaugural performance, it would be wonderful to have funds before May 1st. For Carnegie, it would be great to have most of the funds in by the end of this year. I have been doing nothing but recruiting singers and writing grants and fundraising lately, and that's going to intensify further throughout the year. So,
that would bring in local high school students to join in on this.
yes, we've been approaching them for some time, and
Is there a comment?
Oh, yes, I'm chair of the board of.
Oh, Marilyn, I didn't
I'm
see
sorry
it.
to get here late.
Say your name for the record.
Well, I put it back there. Okay, Marilyn Allen, I don't know who's taking that. Anyway, yeah, and now what was I going to say? Okay, because we have these two performances of it. So some, we're hoping we'll have a good number of high school students. We don't have guarantees, how it's hard to pin teenagers down. But for this, the one that will be done locally, which is at the end of June or in middle of June this year. The Carnegie one is a year out. And so there might be different people possibly involved in that, but we need to get this first one off the ground is my personal feeling, and any amount that you could give would be a show of support for this kind of local arts kind of program. And we would appreciate it. I don't remember what others have given, but what you could reasonably give would be very much appreciated, and we would acknowledge that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for showing up today.
Thank you so much, Mayor Schultz.
Yes.
Mhm.
Any other visitor comments?
Good afternoon, City Council, Steve Toskey, Citizens St. Helens. So, I just saw this article in the newspaper about the fireworks show. And I want to comment that I think that I don't know if this is an accurate comment. I think that our communication with the city about how we're handling the 4th of July and what we're doing with 4th of July needs to be more accurately stated to the public. Right now, the fireworks show is folded under the contract with E2C and is 100% paid for by funding from Halloween Town, as are all 13 Nights on the River Sandcastle competition. There's a survey quote in here, 2021 survey. About the fireworks show and the city's involvement with the fireworks show. That survey was done at a time where the citizen groups had failed and had actually gone bust on trying to get the fireworks show going. And so the city had to take it over and we almost lost the fireworks show. We were very close to losing the fireworks show. And then fortunately, the accusation that tourism was actually somehow losing money and embezzling money turned out to be completely untrue. Turned out to be $1 million moneymaker for the city. And then the city, I thought brilliantly last year, folded all of that money into the tourism program where we had this very seamless fireworks show occur. We had beautiful 13 Nights on the River. I thought the community really came together and everything was done very well by a contractor. So it seemed to be a mismessage to say that the city was looking for another vendor to take over the fireworks show and for fundraising for the event. Fundraising has been a failure for the event, which is why the event wasn't able to go forward. And the city had to take it over. There's no need for fundraising for the event because Halloween Town pays for the event completely, 100%. And our tourism contractor puts the event on. And then the message from the city press release is that there has been I'm trying to get done here, a growing sentiment in recent years that the funds used to host the fireworks displays would be better utilized elsewhere. I have no idea where that statement came from. That seems like something out of complete thin air. And I do think that public needs to know that the funds for the fireworks show come from Halloween Town and 13 Nights on the River, and that we've got a really good economic model. So I think this sends kind of the wrong message about the availability of funding for the fireworks show and how well the event's coming together. I didn't get the messages sent by this article, and I wanted to bring it to your attention. And thank you.
Steve Kowski, that's today, thank you.
Yes,
Okay.
Yeah, I've seen it.
I'll leave it.
Thank you, yeah, please do. All right, other visitor comments?
Ian Topaz, 3600 St. Helens Street. Some information and 3 questions. I'm gonna kind of start the end of my information. My estimate last time I was here, the Halloween brought in about $500,000 from parking tickets from between $2 and $4 million. My oversight was I did not count the number of cars that did not park in the parking but parked around the city. My rough estimate counting on cars puts the income from the Halloween Town project over $4 million. Okay. Next piece of information, February 6th, the appeals court, St. Helens versus Cascade is held in Salem. Hopefully, there'll be some information that the council will get today. Second piece of information, the deep cores in the middle of the lagoon are not going to be drilled. That's technically, I would almost call criminal oversight. The statement made, as you probably know when you read the Law Enforcement report, the first one, that the river level goes up and down only 2 feet. I raised questions to that. But if you look at the data, especially the data from the deep cores that highlight temperature, pH, you'll find out that the temperature and pH changes underneath the lagoon with the tide, which means that there's a flow underneath the lagoon. And I suggest that the city council get their own hydrologist and geologist to double check the data. Okay, questions? There'll be 3. Background is in the fall of 2022, the council was informed that a consulting firm had found large percentages of the sanitary system on the west side was at capacity. And the reason this was important was the developer wanted to add on to it. And the question was whether the development could go forward or not. It was decided that the developer would be financially responsible for any mishaps of the overloaded system until the system was brought up to capacity. I have a rumor that the fixing of the sanitary sewer on the west side has been shelved and is not immediately on the table. So my questions come up, have the property owners along the sewer lines been notified that the sewer system is not going to be improved? 2, is the developer still responsible for covering the damages since there's been, let's say, a major change in the lease agreement that was brought before the council? And has the developer been notified the improvements in the city have been put on hold? Thank you.
Hey, other visitor comments? Do we have any online? Go ahead and unmute yourself, Lynn.
Hi, I just wanted to give a compliment to some of your staff, and it was what they've accomplished in the last couple of months is very noticeable to the Parks Commission. And the person I'm speaking of is Buck Tupper. And he's been doing an outstanding job of communication, working with Brandon Sundin. We've already had about 2 or 3 things completed a project, and also a lot of help, even walking the area that you're discussing. So I just want to give a compliment.
Thank you. Okay. So we'll go on to our first item on the agenda, which is the semi-annual report about the Chamber of Commerce, Jack Massey. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Very good.
Good.
I like to hear that you sing karaoke. It's funny.
I do.
I too sing karaoke. She goes right as a DJ sometimes. So that'll be fun. Thank you for having me today. I provided a report for you, and I don't plan on going through everything on the bullet list. I just want to get some of the highlights. Things are moving along very well. We are definitely growing our chamber. And so our numbers are up definitely, and I like to show you guys that every time I come in here for the 6-month check-in. You can see that last 6 months ago in August, we were at actually so we're 114 active members, and we are definitely up from that. So I gave you the stats from a year ago. today versus today, and definitely four cert members in the platinum, 6 in the gold, 10 in the silver. Bronze actually is the same amount. We have 2 new members that are in our individual. They're not associated with the business, but they just want to be of what's going on. They want to be networking, find out what's going on in the community. So that's pretty cool. Our coffee and commerce is again out for months, which is great. And our happy hour, we changed it up a little bit and having it available to any member who wants to have to be a host of happy hour. So not just like the food and beverage locations, restaurants, etc. And in fact, we kicked it off with Cardinal Services being our first happy hour that's not in the food and beverage region. And we worked it out with OLPC and we had to come to the city and get you guys' approval as well. So there's a whole process to it, but it does definitely open it up for more members to be able to take advantage of that happy hour opportunity. We also was listening to the feedback that we were getting with the 4 to 6 o'clock timeframe. We were hearing that it's difficult for some people to get off work and actually attend happy hour. So we're bumping it out to 4:30 to 6:30. We've done that starting last month and this month.
Right, that's not you. Yeah.
So we are bumping it out to 4:30 to 6:30 now, and hopefully in the summertime, if we start to continue to see more faces that are saying that they would show up, then I'm gonna see if I can get the board to agree to a 5 to 7. So if that helps any of you attend, that would be awesome. I'd love to see you. Patrick, by the way, I have some cookies in the cart for you. He purchased some cookies from a fun They are in a cooler, so there's a staying cool. So yeah, I last time I came in, I was doing 2 newsletters a month. That's just too much. We had to look at my workload and it was just too much. So I'm doing 1 newsletter at the beginning of the month, and then I'm following that up with weekly bulletins is what I call them. So just like this week, this is what you need to know this week, 2 or 3 little blurbs. So if it's too much to read the full newsletter at the beginning of the month, at least catch the bulletins and see what's happening each week, okay? I did create a brochure since I saw you guys last. I brought some copies. I only brought 5. I do apologize. I counted 5 people on the list today, but I'd like to bring those up to you guys and just have you take a quick peek at them. This is what put together for a sort of a reminder for the members as to what their benefit packages are. A lot of times they forget what they can take advantage of. And it's also a little brochure to for new members that want to consider joining. So kind of the 2-for-1 deal on there. And of course, there's an insert there that talks about the actual benefits and the prices. So I'm definitely interested in participating in the St. Helens Citizens Day in the Park. I need to get the chamber signed up for that. I assume one of you people is here are the people I need to talk to. And I don't know if Scappoose Adventure Fest is going to be doing that activity this year, but I'd like the chamber to be involved in that as well. With that, I'm also reaching out to the Columbia City Council and the Scappoose City Council, offering them the opportunity to take advantage of the semi-annual reports that I'm bringing to you as well. Plan to be involved in the Kiwanis Parade. Not even sure exactly if we'll have a float or what have you, but we'll definitely open up our chamber lobby and the center there for restrooms and maybe some cold water and open to the public and even the, I guess it's Kiwanis who would be utilizing some of our space as well for planning purposes. I have to say I really enjoyed the 2nd annual boardwalk trick or treat. That was super fun. We had lots of parents come through with their kids and we gave away some goodies and things like that. So it was just really nice to see some of the community that I don't get to see because I see business members, but not necessarily parents. So thank you for doing that. That was a lot of fun. Our Black Friday sale was successful. We had in the 7-day time frame that we opened up our discount of 20% off. We had 24 members renew and 10 new members came in for that time period. So that was, I consider that to be successful for a 7-day stint. Our community room is going to be used more so this year. We've got classes pretty much every month, sometimes even a couple classes. Our members are really taking advantage of it. New home buyer. We have a gentleman that, I don't know if you know who Jeremy with PacTac is, PacTac Security Solutions. He owns a couple other companies and he's doing a class for the next 10 months, the last Thursday of every month. Concealed weapons. He does the security systems, and he's a previous police officer, so I've encouraged him to also to hopefully this year do some sort of a self-defense class, because that's also some training that he does. So things like that we're offering to the community. Everybody can come in, not just members, come on in and take advantage of whatever's being taught. I have 2 goals for this year, my personal goals, and that would be to create a chamber advertisement jingle at the library at the makerspace. See, I just see.
I hope you see it.
And I'd like to get the chamber back on the radio. I have yet to talk to Marty about that, but I'm gonna love having to. I would love to see back on the radio and have guest speakers and I have ideas for some things to, you know, fix things up a little bit.
Makes sense. You can play the jingle on the radio.
And I can play the jingle on the radio. Moving on to the member support, and basically I'm using our Google Calendar to send out invites to our networking events, along with the newsletter is special invitations to come to these happy hour, coffee and commerce ribbon cutting. So if any of you are interested in getting those calendar invites, I don't necessarily send them out to get like, yes, you're coming or not. I don't really, not for that purpose, more so just to remind you, and you can have it on your calendar, and would love to see you attend any of those events. So just give me a holler if you want me to add you to the Google calendars. We're definitely collaborating with members to find more creative ways to have fun and engaging activities. For example, we're doing a T-Mobile ribbon cutting this Friday, and it's February, so it's all about pink. Wear your pink and get into a draw, you know, name in a drawing for a prize. Of course, if you don't wear pink, guess what? I'll have something pink in the door for you. So, but just some fun things like that. And still giving out the welcome kits to new members. I think that's a wonderful way to have them be introduced to their benefits. They'll come into the chamber if possible. That's the best way to go about it, so they can get a tour of the chamber, and that is one of their benefits that they can utilize. So that's going well. Basically just doing one ribbon cutting a month. There for a while I was doing every 2 weeks. That's too much. But definitely encouraging members to join forces this year, a term that you might see often. What time I've got already? Okay. Trying to stay on track there. Is prosperity through partnerships. So several of our happy hours are already have been co-hosted or going to be co-hosted, just like last month's was the Columbia County Cycle. I think I can say that right every time, at Big River Tap Room. So the two were hosting together, and I just, it's like a, you know, both of them were promoting, you know, their business, and it was just really nice to be able to get 2 businesses promoted at the same time. And with that, with these happy hours, businesses can contribute the door prizes, so they're getting a promotion too. We're getting like 5, 6, 7 door prizes being donated, so that's a great promotional opportunity for anyone else. And then this month we're having our happy hour at Fultano's, but it's also with the 4 credit unions who are coming together and kind of merging in a united situation, because they all have something unique to offer the community. So they're showing that they can come together as one on point inroads and
Fiber.
on point and Unitas. So they're all coming together and going to be offering classes at the chamber as well, highlighting the things that they do best or that they offer that maybe the others don't, their unique qualities. So just promoting that whole prosperity through partnerships, I think is a wonderful thing. Our ambassador program is doing well. We're having our monthly meetings and getting things done that are on task list. We're going to apply for the grant, the Main Street grant. We just didn't get our ducks in a row in time. Try again for that next year, but we did definitely get quotes for what it would take to get our business, our building to not up to code, but just we need some improvements. The roof needs help and our furnace needs replaced and some things like that. So we definitely need some improvements and upgrades, and so we'll be working on that with maybe some other grant opportunities. One thing that came up before was the look of the chamber, and I'm with you guys on that. I want it to look better. I want the landscaping to look better. I've been working on that, but I'm still one person. We have the Promise Church comes in and uses our building every Sunday. It is their church. So They have the congregation meet in the front of the lobby. They have the children's church in the back of where the community room is. They've actually reached out and said that they'd like to do some landscaping on their time. And so I'll be out there helping them get our parking area cleaned up. And maybe you'll see some changes there as well. It really needs it. Noticed. Gonna do another 2-year lease with SAFE of Columbia County. And they are the group that helps people in domestic violence situations, help them get back on their feet and into healthy relationships. So yeah, anytime you guys have surveys, announcements, I'm watching for that. I'm always putting that in the newsletter, making sure that you guys are being promoted and your information is being put out to the community as well. And we had a candidate forum. I don't know if any of you attended that. I think you were there. I think it was pretty well attended. We had most of the candidates there. We had the 2 sheriffs. We had a state and a House representative. Unfortunately, the other 2 were at another function in that half hour that evening. And then the 2 commissioners were there. And so it was all positive. It wasn't, trying to beat anyone down, just things that the community needed to know and questions that the community were interested in hearing from. So, and Q&A afterwards was nice for them to meet and greet. Holiday shop, not so good. Didn't have one. There was just too many bazaars everywhere. If you saw what Keep It Local put out, it was like a whole list of bazaars and sales everywhere. So I think we had some competition there with some of my vendors being out and about elsewhere. Didn't help that our Facebook page got hacked in September, and that was really huge in our communicating to public and getting vendors to hear about our sales. So we're back on. We have a new Facebook page. If you're seeing our newsletter, you'll see that we've been putting that link out there. Please do follow us and like our new page and tell others to do the same. Last but not least, we are doing an awards banquet, an annual awards banquet. We haven't done one since 2019. We're excited to do one again.
When that was gonna come.
Our nominations are open right now. You guys please keep these. We have 10 categories that we are nominating businesses and or citizens for. Anyone can nominate, anyone from the local areas within South Columbia County can nominate people right now. We'll hold our nominations through the end of the month. These 10 categories are available to nominate anyone as well. So we'll see where this takes us. And at the beginning of March, we will take 2 weeks to be able to look through all the nominees. And if we need to, we come down to a certain number of businesses or people on the ballot. We will have to break those down to a, reasonable number. About 20, we can't have everyone on the ballot. So the board will determine with what we have in the nominees, who will be put on the ballots. Mid-March, we will then put it out for vote. Then I'm sure we'll see you guys there. We'll have a table at our event, right? Yes,
Yes.
7 minutes. That would be great. You see, I provided the sponsorship rates there as well. They're all a full table of 8 for any of the businesses or organizations. So pick your choice, and then we will promote accordingly to the service there. So we're super excited to be able to highlight some members in the community who just have gone above and beyond to really build the vitality and partner and do really great things. So I'm excited about that.
Hey, any questions for Jack? I'm gonna give this to Lisa, Kathy, and they can remind us when it comes that time.
I'll be getting hold of you or Avamir soon.
Super, yes. And I know the printing is really small on that one that gives the sponsorships and categories. I do apologize. It is May 5th, Friday, May 5th at the Lucini Hall. And that's right here, just a couple blocks back on at the church. Okay, so we'll be looking for. And it is, and it's not. We're not doing a full Cinco de Mayo like theme, but it's also the first week of May is always National Small Business Appreciation Week. So that's really our focus. We'll probably have some food, and Doug with Wild Current will be providing that. So it's going to be good stuff. So, hey, I'm excited to see what you guys send in for your sponsorship table,
All right,
okay? Oh, with that, just one last thing, I know we're kind of, but we're having a live auction. With items that are representing the fun and food and festivities that Oregon has to offer. And we're also doing a wine and whiskey wall. So we'll have donations of
oh, on May 5th.
all I make it, all at this event. Mhm. So bring your $20 for the wine and whiskey bags,
Okay.
big surprise, and bring some money for some really cool auction items, okay?
Good.
Super,
All
thank
right,
you.
Thank you. Thanks for bringing back that chamber. Yeah, very much needed.
I don't know how to get your cookies to you, Patrick. They're cold.
Oh.
Can I bring someone in the office?
Have I paid
You want me to put you on the agenda? Oh, Volvo, you want me to put you on the agenda down, or are you ready?
You have others that are gonna join you here around 4?
I think so.
Yes.
We'll push it out.
I was gonna say you look ready.
I'm ready, they're not.
Okay, let's go ahead and go on to our next item, which is discussion regarding parking for event, Tina Curry. Our event coordinator, EQC.
Yeah, I would agree. So I've had parking on my brain for quite some time. And it manifested itself as well for T-shirts for raising money for parks. So if anybody wants to get a Park It T-shirt, which has all of our parks listed on it with activities, they can now purchase it online at the spiritofhalloweentown.com store shop. You can shop online, so we expect to see this all over town. And then I also have a quick question, just based on what the chamber presentation was, and I'm wondering, this isn't a tourism activity, but I'm wondering if it would be possible if you would give me permission to use some tourism funds to buy tables for people that maybe can't afford tables in the community that should be recognized and maybe can't go. And maybe the council as well.
Sure, let's think about that.
Yeah, because it's not really tourism, but I'm like, oh, there's probably people that can't afford to go, maybe that are really good volunteers and things that they typically. So parking, and Kathy has 2 slides, so I've done a lot of investigation in parking, but by no means am I an expert in parking. However, I vetted a couple of different parking options. Some of them we don't qualify for because we're just not large enough to, you know, be of interest for that company. So Park Mobile is the one that I think would probably suit our needs specifically. And what I'm thinking about for Halloween, because we have no parking, we're not going to have any parking probably in the Cascade property. And in the future, we're not going to have any parking in the Cascade parking lot that is going to be nearly enough for events. So the only parking that we really have that can possibly cover the parking that we need at this moment is the parking behind the recreation center across from Johnny's. And then also the parking that is available in the Cascades property. And it's super important that we, thank God we have that, because otherwise we would be dealing with potential trains, stopping buses, taking people from absolutely, you know, probably 10 or 15 minutes away to get them here for parking. So we would use the Boise property as well, which has some marked parking spots, some unmarked, so we would have to mark some parking spots. And then also.
So, you know, for the person not knowing, in the know, what she's referring to, excuse me, I have a mouthful, is that we have construction going on in downtown where we used to have the parking for Halloween Town. And the Veneer property, yes, and now that is not available because of the construction. So she is letting us know that she is going ahead of this, trying to figure out parking for future.
Yeah. Yeah.
for Halloween.
And maybe permanently, because in all honesty, there is no way, once buildings start going in there, that we would have parking.
And I'll
enough for-
allow you to respond to just on the comment earlier made about those numbers.
Oh, I wish those were my numbers.
Yeah, I think you're looking guys back there and that is clearly not the case.
That's clearly not the
Yeah,
case,
I mean,
but I love those numbers.
even you sit here,
Yeah,
you know that's not
yeah,
That doesn't check out.
no.
6 week event and
I
there,
wish.
yeah.
It'd be
For
lovely.
clarity, the Cascade property that you're referring to is
That softball field.
down behind the softball field, so if you're taking Split Road, following it to the factory.
That, and then also possibly the Cascades parking lot itself. Which I feel like, I don't know who owns that, but I would, beg them to use it, okay,
Be shared with us, so.
okay. And it would probably be the same way for 4th of July, that's what I'm thinking, we're probably gonna be doing the same thing for 4th of July, because there's just not enough parking in the community. So speaking of the community, I kind
Well,
of,
I can speak a little bit on that, because the video plant used to be open, even when the city owned it, that we just parked along the streets, and
Yeah.
yes, it was. A jumbled mess,
Yeah.
yes, but it worked. I can speak on that, I would probably just let the community figure that out.
okay, I'm cool. with
No,
that.
I'm just saying that because it probably would be the easiest at that point in time,
Okay,
I know.
but we'll
homeowners are
just
gonna
warn people
be- Yeah.
where you need to go,
Warn the homeowners. Belly,
yeah.
please, park here, no parking is.
We've got tons of time to message that, which is great.
Mhm.
Like if we're making that decision, it's always better to get ahead of it, so we can just tell people it's gonna be street parking.
Yeah.
And, we can,
We could do a shuttle though.
yeah, I'm
We
thinking we
could,
probably should do a shuttle because
Yes,
people don't, some people can't walk for, 2 miles, which is. It takes like 20 minutes for me to walk uptown and I'm pretty fast walker. So for some people, it could be, a 30-45 minute walk, which I don't think is reasonable to expect. So, so fireworks, okay, that's cool that you're doing that. That would be great. And then I'll just work on doing some logistics and ahead of it with, some buses that are running, probably use just school buses. And then we can take, 40 people at a time and,
and for anybody watching, we're just going to the Days Bowl, this isn't something that we're just pulling out, that's the way it used to
Yeah.
be.
for sure.
So, does that mean we're scrapping this park mobile idea?
No,
Okay, so can you go back to that?
yes, 'cause that's more for like Halloween Town and other events that we potentially will have when we have a new stage. You're gonna have capacity to do bigger events here, where you could have ticketed events with theater groups and other music that wanna come to town, as a venue. So this park mobile, in my opinion, based on not being an expert on parking, but investigating a lot of different parking options, is probably our best bet because of the following reasons. They do 100% of the customer service, so we would not have to hire somebody that is going to answer phone calls if somebody can't figure out how to use the app or something like that. And the way Park Mobile works is that it's similar to like Parking Kitty, if you're familiar with that in Portland, where you download an app and put your license plate number in, and then you just buy how many hours you want to park in that space. And how you know that if you go to the next slide, how you know what the, go down, if you scroll up a little bit. So we would install, posts in specific zones. So for instance, you might have 20 cars in one zone. And then you'll have 20 cars in another zone. So people can immediately see that there's a parking app when they park. They don't have to look around for it and go, I didn't even see it, because it's like 40 cars over there. So we would need to navigate how many signs we need. They provide all of the signage. We would provide the posts that the signs are attached to. They can be attached to any kind of a post that we would, think is the right size, or implement it into the ground permanently. I mean, you might want to do this permanently, I don't know. But so we would look at the grid of the city and we would say, okay, this is my agenda for this year for parking, is to get people to park in the lot so that they do not interrupt homeowners being able to park on their own streets. And because we can choose how much we are going to charge as street parking and promote how much we're going to charge as street parking, we can get them to see that parking in the lot is vastly cheaper. So it would discourage people from parking on the street, because we would just make the amount. We would say, look, you're going to save $15 by parking in the parking lot. Of course you want to park there. And then some streets like Nightmare on 4th Street, I think that that's one street that we might want to do signage that just says for residents only. And we give the residents, a little placard to put on their window. Now that brings us to another interesting thing with this parking application. We can import the residents' license plate numbers right into the program, so they would never get a ticket. So if they want to park in front of their house and they're in zone 642, great, you're never going to get a ticket. So it takes like pressure off of them to go, oh God, I'm going to have to go get this thing in my window. No, they actually just need to give us their license plate number with the zone that would be outside of their house or closest to where they would typically park. And that would, I think, mitigate a lot of concern that people have when they're talking about parking down here, because clearly we get inundated with parking with Halloween. One of the things that we've done in the past is to include parking with the ticket. We decided not to do that this year because we reduced the price of our ticket last year just because it was the first year after COVID. We didn't really know what we were going to expect number wise. And so we made our ticket a little bit less, and we just charged the one person that was parking the car. Before it was just included in every ticket. So we were able to reduce the ticket price a little bit and then just charge the one person that parks the car. But we want to get people not parking on the streets, and parking in the lot at $15 is hugely inexpensive compared to every other parking scenario you pretty much go to that our guests would be used to paying. Because when you go to Portland and you park downtown, even it's a regular lot. I think the last time I parked downtown for a day, I paid like $24 or $25. So, and Seattle is even more. Seattle is ridiculously expensive now. And games and events are really expensive. The convention center is super expensive to park in. So our parking would be an enticement at $15 if we just keep it at $15 to park there instead of parking on the street. We would be very vocal in our messaging to people to say, don't park on the street. It's going to cost you a lot more. Oh, well, it's always been free. Well, not anymore. So we can, try to help the citizens as much as possible.
Would there be a representative from this company that could come present to us on how they work?
Yeah.
Because I mean, before we start putting these in neighborhoods, kind of need to know a little bit more.
Well, if you, they would happily come here.
This isn't a bad idea for our parking jobs downtown. I hate to say it, but eventually we need to pay for a parking structure.
Yeah.
In most cities, and they're down.
With this system, you can make your own pricing,
I mean, it's unfortunate, that's just the way it is.
You can also do this with the system.
50-50, most downtown areas are 50-50. If you, you don't pay, but you hardly find those spots, or you do pay. You go.
One thing that's really interesting with this, which I kind of like with this application as well, is if you have a concert or something like that. You can actually reserve a spot with your number on it. Like, electronically, just like you make a reservation online. And these apps are widely used. If you go to, the new waterfront in Vancouver, you'll see they do the same thing because it's just so simple to use. And it reminds people, oh, you're going to have to, you need to pay because you've been here for a certain amount of time. Like say you wanted to come for 2 hours and you end up staying for 3 hours, it will tell you at hour 2, you need to buy another hour of time or upgrade. So it tries to tell you to not get a ticket. So the cost recovery for us is 0 because it's free. They'll do it for free. And the customer pays 45 cents when they use the application. So I think that's nice.
I mean, I like it. I have a lot of concern about it. I'm just being honest, and I understand you're doing everything you can to try to come up with solutions. So I don't want you to be offended by my concerns because it's a hard solution to fix for us with lack of parking. So
What if we put this on the bill problem?
I have just a couple of concerns, permanent stuff, because we have a lot of ideas of that area of things that we want to do with it. So I don't want to waste money putting stuff in that we're going to have to rip out. And so that, of course, I'm a conservative person. I don't like to waste money. So that is, of course, a concern for me is putting in a bunch of these poles and signage and all of that. And then too, is it user friendly? People come down here and it takes them 20 minutes to log into the app. I have a lot of people that are very upset. They're just trying to park and it's going to cause issues. And I can just see it because people can't even set up for auto payments, so apps are not always user friendly. And then like who enforces it? Like, are we going to put a lot, is that going to create a lot more burden on our courts and police and stuff with enforcing these parking tickets? That we're not used to giving out a lot of parking tickets. Let's just be honest. That's not something we do a lot around here. So we have to think about that ripple effect. And then will it even be enough? Will that even be enough parking spaces,
I know, that's
And
a huge thing.
we're not like Vancouver, where their waterfront is popular all times of the year. It's only during a certain amount of time, which I of course hope for longer periods of time, but right now, it's only during a certain period of time that we're really having this severe parking issue. So.
Yeah, so we would, to answer some of your questions, probably 90% of the people that come here are from out of town. So they're used to more than likely engaging with this type of parking solution because they're like so widely used.
I've never heard of it until you said that today. And I feel pretty young and.
But are you going to Portland and parking on the street?
No, and I usually go to a parking
Vancouver?
garage. If I go to Portland, I go to a parking garage,
Yeah.
for parking, paid parking.
Right.
So I don't really.
I mean, CERT would still be involved, big time, yes, very big time, and, so they would be able to show people how to load the application if they needed to. But it's really similar to so many other areas now that I think most of the people that come here would be able to navigate it, because like the first time I used it, I was like, what is this? I was like so frustrated because I was already late for an appointment. And even though I'm not like an IT person, in fact, I'm like the reverse of that. I was able to figure it out in 5 minutes, download the app. And then it leads you, it tells you enter your license plate number. How much time do you want to buy? And it gives you like how much it's going to cost. And then it comes directly, right out of your like PayPal account, or you can put a credit card in, which I did because that's, what I wanted to do. And, it's just automatic payment.
Let's work. I see you.
Yeah.
Yes, Doreen, a question?
Sure, a couple, I know, and I'm glad that you're presenting this so we can
Yeah.
have some lead time. So, but 2 questions. One, installation of these things would require some kind of permitting process or and I'm looking at Jacob, would this kind of thing, is that something that would go through that the permit you would just be, you'd be able to handle, or is there something that would have to go before the planning commission for this type of thing?
I think it depends on where. If it's street parking, that's an exercise of public works. The planning commission may be concerned about the visualization of that in the historic district. Putting those on private property, and is it a temporary parking lot or is it becoming a permanent parking lot? That opens up some issues.
Yeah, so anyway, we just, so it just depends, but it may be something that we have to take into account.
Yeah, we wanted comprehensive staff involvement.
And thanks, Jacob. And the second thing was, in this type of thing, where we would basically be contracting, right, with this service. Are we under obligation to bid or to bid? I mean, I know you've done some investigation of this, you recommend it, but do we have an obligation to put out an RFP, something to bid,
Well, you
to
could.
find the best? Is that our response? We have an obligation to do that. Or are there ways to do it without them? I guess that's when that.
Yeah, something we need to look into as a procurement question.
Yeah. And you could use poles that you currently have to attach these to, if you have like a no parking sign, or you have a hourly parking sign. Or they could even be attached to temporary, something that's more temporary. But if you're ever gonna wanna use them again, you might want, I don't know, you might wanna go through the whole process of like, deciding where they're gonna go, how they're gonna look, that whole thing, because that is important to me.
Anybody opposed to having this company come present to us just on what they do? If they're willing to, I mean, they should be, they should be.
Why don't I send you their whole packet first,
Yeah.
and then we could get them to come
Even
even
Zoom.
electronically,
Even
yeah,
Zoom,
yeah,
yes.
exactly.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of things that they also do within this parking application, which it may or may not be useful for us. But Clark College, for example, uses this parking.
And when we had that presentation, I'd asked city planner and our engineering as well to listen. Okay,
But this is just what I'm thinking, because I'm trying to, not have people complaining in the neighborhoods, which that has gone down, but it's still like, when you live in a town, do you want to park in your house? More than likely.
so why I got you here, we've had lots of inquiry about the boat, and I talked to you about this, it's taken a lot longer than you had
Yeah.
anticipated. And you had it modified, and it was required by the Coast Guard. And it was supposed to be here in August.
Yeah,
All right. But it's been modified and it is set to go for the COI tomorrow
Inspection.
by the Coast Guard down there. And it's really been the Coast Guard who's been we've been waiting for quite a while since the modification on this boat, correct?
correct. And do you want to have something that I can give you? I just need to get it.
Sure,
Grab it.
sure.
See it.
I just told people I would ask you
Yeah, no
about this. I knew you were coming up with parking, so I want to get some clarification on this for the concerned citizens out there. And also for people who are listening, to know that this was bought out of tourism money. It does not come out of the city money, and the final payment has not been made, and it should be being shipped here soon.
Yeah,
That's
so
what I did with the
Yeah.
follow-up, like I said I would for. Counselor Tope or ex-Counselor Tope had asked, and the guy named Jim Pullman, and they were kind of upset a little bit.
yeah,
About how long it took.
yeah. I'm not sure why, but I'm the most upset. In fact, I looked back and I'm like, how much correspondence have I had with these guys? I have 57 emails that I have gone back and forth with them. But on the, in the original meeting, that we had is like, I explained, I'm not a boat expert. I don't know anything about boats, so I have to rely on other people that are supposedly experts. And in the original attachment A, the total lead time right here was estimated to be 8 to 12 weeks. You know, that was.
So that's what we were given, yes.
So that's what I'm given, and these guys are experts, you know, they build boats and they ship them all across the country. And barges, and our neighbors in Lake Oswego and Lake Chelan and just all over. And, you know, so some of the emails, some of the original emails I just are right here, and I can give you copies of those. And then also, this is a letter, not a letter, but I had asked him, because the COI stability test got pushed from the 10th to the 16th. And so I'm like, can you just give me a summary of what's going on? And so the owner sent this letter and said, you know, the original request for COI water taxi looked to be too far out to build new. So we looked for a vessel that the COI was simply needed to be recertified. Vessels were found that met the criteria and was sourced and brought to Florida for refit of all operating systems, refresh appearances and trim, new seats, etc. This was originally scheduled for completion in July of 2022. The issues with maintaining the schedule arose around the addition of the bow-mounted gangway, which was not part of the original design of the vessel. This was at first said to be acceptable and not in need in further certification, but when the Coast Guard was officially called out for the first inspection for COI, they declared that the addition of this feature constituted the need for a full design approval and submission for a brand new COI, no longer a recertification. At this point, the vessel would now have to meet the latest 2022 and 2023 standards for all equipment and outfitting, which created the need for all aspects of the vehicle refit to be inspected and all systems updated. Some of the refit work that had already been performed then needed to be reworked to meet the new standards of a brand new vessel. In addition, this required us to hire a naval architect, Brandon Travilla from Pelican Engineering in New Orleans, to generate and submit a full design and engineering package to the Marine Safety Center of Coast Guard in Washington, D.C., which is a 3-month plus process for review and approval. Now we are in the final stage of the complete rebuild and recertification, which is the stability test, and is scheduled for February 16th. This is attended by both the naval architect we hired and a Coast Guard representative. If there are no modifications required at the initial test, then we are fully complete with this process on our end, and all that will remain is the inspection and drills on site with your local Coast Guard to prove the crew competent and safety equipment on board. In summary, there was a notification in the sales agreement that the front gangway could potentially trigger additional approvals and procedures from regulatory. In total, we have incurred more than $30,000 in additional costs related to this complete recertification process. You also have been negatively impacted by possible loss of operational time and revenues. The issue with being at the mercy of the Coast Guard to make a determination of status on vessel modifications was recognized in the original timeline, but no one could have predicted the actual impact of these actions. The result is unfortunate, but the vessel you receive has significantly more updates and a higher standard of outfitting than it would have had if it was recognized as a recert of the original COI. I believe in the long term, you will realize this additional value, and they're eating that 30,000. Yeah. The third, so that was the last, you know, update. This is what the boat is.
Very important.
The boat is beautiful. It's going to be in the water tomorrow. So, and they're gonna videotape, yeah, they're gonna videotape the whole thing. And I'll give you a copy of this.
Not all the copy.
So it'll come here and then our Coast Guard will do an inspection of it.
Well, but their inspection is for safety equipment to make sure that we have everything on.
For location by.
But that's good, so I'm gonna
Yeah, we're gonna give that to you. We're all done looking at
be on the road.
Okay.
So that's that's the fortunate, unfortunate
Well, thank you for the long
circumstances.
explanation. I'm glad you did.
Yeah.
I think you need to hear it because, when you're out there, you're not deep in the weeds with 57 emails flying back and forth and.
A really great timeline of what has happened. And
Yeah.
sometimes these things happen.
Yeah,
Things out of our control.
yeah. Fortunately, it didn't really affect us, financially, but it made it operation wise. It was like way more work for me operation wise, because we had 3 boats going instead of one. One cap.
Yes, all right, thank you for the explanation.
You're welcome.
Yes,
Anything else?
no, we definitely.
So I'm gonna give you this, yeah. I'll send this all through Kathy and then she can give it to you in your
I'll see
office.
this, yeah. Yep. All right, thank you, Tina.
Thank you.
All right, let's go ahead and do discussion on House Bill 3115 related code amendments. Jacob Gration, our senior planner.
Yeah, thank you. So there's no code amendments proposed now. But we want to get to that point.
Yeah.
And so that's the point of this discussion. So we've talked about the bill. I'm not going to go back into those details. But basically it ups the ante of how cities manage its homeless population on public lands, camping, sheltering, things like that. And the bill has a deadline of July 1st, which is starting to approach. Planning Commission staff has been looking at this for several months. Planning Commission took it on as a proactive item in September. And we talked about it at the last joint meeting with the Council and Planning Commission. We finally have some legal feedback, so we know that we need to amend our code in some fashion. And based on, all this effort that has occurred over the last several months, we're kind of at this milestone opportunity. And there's a lot of different paths we can take. And so what we're hoping to do is utilize the next Planning Commission City Council joint meeting on March 8th to discuss some of these issues and hopefully achieve some consensus. So then we have some direction on how we want to move the ship, as well as that will probably result in questions to ask some other agencies as we help formulate what we're going to do.
Question on that, maybe for John. Will we have the attorney that we're working with available for that meeting as well?
I can certainly look into that. See if
Yes,
it's available.
because I'd rather just narrow it down and get it. July is coming up quick.
And that's probably going to be the main topic of this joint meeting, because it itself will take a lot of time.
Yeah.
So, but it's really this milestone, this is milestone meeting for this. And, we have March, April, May, June, ideally in June, the ordinance is being written. At that point, it had to be an emergency clause, probably to be effective sooner than 30 days.
Yeah.
So just looking at the time that we have,
Speed it up, because first and second reading.
and then, budget's gonna be coming up,
Yeah.
spring is gonna be coming up.
Yeah.
Luckily, this winter has been kind of a normal winter, as opposed to what they've been like for the last 4 or 5 years. So we've had time to put into it. But at that time is gonna be less available in the months ahead. So it's kind of a really critical juncture. There's a memo in your packet. I'm just gonna go over this really quickly, not dive too deep. I think the discussion with the Planning Commission and legal counsel, if they can attend, will help provide that depth. This memo's in your packet. I'm hoping that you just spend some time to digest it a little bit between now and that joint meeting. I'll just cover some of the basic things that we can cover at that meeting. And this isn't necessarily, the only things that we can talk about, but we have to provide a framework, so there's organized discussion. We're hoping to be efficient. So one is the definition of camping. We know we need to change that. We want to at least take sleeping out of that. That's not a very exciting thing to talk about, but there's enough people that'll be in the room that are excited about it. That'll help shape that discussion. But for example, one of the things that matters is, okay, camping, sheltering, and using vehicles or not, and if vehicles included in the definition, then it ties some of those things together. So for example, if someone's in a vehicle, do you use your camping code or your vehicle parking ordinance? So that's the definition. Probably one of the more critical questions is, do we have places that we say you can't camp or places where you say you can? And there's a lot of pros and cons for those. A lot of cities have gone to the list areas that you can't camp. But you know, we don't necessarily have to do that. And we'll have the maps available. And I think, you know, that discussion with the maps is pretty humbling. We had kind of a preliminary meeting earlier this week, and so that's going to be a really important part. And we know that the Parks Commission does not favor that in its parks, so we have that kind of taking care of that initial feedback from them. And when you're talking about single areas, let's say you're talking about, okay, well, we're gonna say where you can go, then there's, you know, managed site versus non-managed, and who does that. And if you have specific sites, do you have one or multiple? That brings into some concepts of state created danger. So let's say someone's seriously allergic to almond pollen, and you have a camp by an almond farm. Well, that's not going to work for this person. Or let's say there you have your camp, and person A is in there, person B shows up. There's a restraining order here. So you know, if you have specific sites management, and do you have multiple sites or not? So that's you know, some of the issues for that. When we talk about location in the memo, we have several examples of what other cities have listed as places where it's not acceptable, to help people think about that. So with this list and the map and a lot of debate, you know, hopefully we can get somewhere. Another issue we'll talk about is duration. So the statute talks about when a campsite becomes established, there's provisions for 72-hour notice before people are removed. The statute does not say what established means, and so that's another thing we need to talk about. Arguably, the default time is 24 hours, but you could go less, you could go more. And there's some debate on that, and I think it would be super helpful to have legal counsel for that part. Because otherwise we may brainstorm ourselves to death on that one. There's a violation question, at least this is an easy one. Right now it's $250, punishable by a fine of $250. There's some suggestions to lower that. Obviously, if you're homeless, you're probably not rolling in the dough. And then another provision that we will need to talk about is private camping allowance. Now, the ORS does not require us to allow private camping, but it does provide some guidance if you do. Interestingly, it says camping by individuals and vehicles, and looking at some of the other cities' examples, they've gone beyond vehicles to include tents and stuff like that. And, you know, it's part of the conversation. If it's, well, let's just not deal with that now, that's perfectly fine. But in trying to look at it comprehensively, it's just a question that we at least need to ask. So that's just the quick overview. I'm hoping that you just kind of look at this. And if you'd like me to email this to you separately, so it's not buried in the packet, I can do that. My goal was for this not to be too long. So it's only 5 pages instead of typical planning report, which is 20. So I'll email that to you separately, so you have that.
And it's just food for thought and what we're coming up against, what the discussion will be.
Yeah, it's to hopefully gain some consensus, and it will help us figure out, oh, okay, well, we have some things, maybe some questions community action team can help us answer. And I think this meeting is going to help with consensus and draw some of those other questions out to get us closer to where we're starting to put pen to paper on in our ordinance.
All right. Thank you, Jacob.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
Okay, now. Paul, I don't know where the other people are,
They're
but
on their way.
okay,
They're on their way. There was maybe a little misception on timing, so there's.
so you wanna come up now or you wanna wait for him?
Well, I mean,
I got a couple other things I could do.
well, if you got a couple other things, we'll wait. Okay.
Okay, now we're gonna do the St. Helens and First Street Gateway feature, John Walsh, city administrator.
Yeah, this shouldn't take a whole lot of time. I just wanted to introduce, kind of socialize the project. So
Exciting stuff.
it is exciting stuff.
Good.
And everybody's here to help Dawn. She's done a lot of heavy lifting so far. In the design of the First Street intersection and the First Street project and the Streets and Utilities project, there was planned for art. It didn't feel like civil engineers should be lead that effort. Hope you can appreciate that, though. No offense to civil engineers. So we provided the space to have our artistic features, one of these being the First and St. Helens Street intersection, the others being down at Cowlitz where the roads can extend down and have this turnaround feature and some entry stuff there.
Get the Strand, right?
Festival Street on the Strand, yeah, the
Yes,
Strand.
the
Festival Street, the Strand's gonna have these features that can come down and walk off the street with the fence. All good things to come. And we wanted to get this project at First and St. Helens Street. Mostly because it ties closely with the undergrounding of power and installation of the curb. A lot of utilities. Conflicts in there. That we're trying to sort out and still have enough room to have a entry feature. Gateway goes across the section there. So, Jenny reached out, a couple of internal objectives of having potentially start locally designed. And to that tier, looking to our community, just and reached out to two companies, and so you want to kind of take over from there and talk
Yeah,
about.
sure. So what Kathy showed on the screen is the First and St. Helens intersection. The little highlighted numbers there are both pointing to locations where they are running electrical conduit. So we're planning for power to light up this feature with the undergrounding of all the utilities there. So that's just a little bit more information about what you're looking at. And yeah, I think using a local architecture firm or civil engineering firm makes sense for a gateway feature in our community. And, you know, we were kind of hoping that maybe Pacific Stainless might be involved in the fabrication to just use another local firm. So we had Acon Architecture just up here. Their office is almost in sight of this exact location. Prepare a proposal for their design services. And then we also had Lower Columbia Engineering prepare a proposal. And both of those were put in your boxes. Hopefully you had a chance, or if you haven't yet, that's fine. This is just to tee up the project. You know, I think what John and I had talked about, the differences between the two, you know, one is an architecture firm, the other is an engineering firm. Acon has experience doing some gateway features. There's 2 gateway sculpture projects all on the highway, and then a banner project that Kanika was involved with on her role on the Arts Commission.
Lower Columbia has done a ton of work in the community. They've worked with Pacific Stainless specifically on the Veterans Memorial Project. They worked closely to help fabricate that. I think it's a great structure across from the gazebo. So I know they've worked well together in the past. So, I think both proposals are pretty apples to apples. They're gonna help us through some design meetings where council would be involved, the planning commission would be involved. We'd convene a group of stakeholders.
So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
With that being said, would it be wise, because you're in the know, would it be wise to actually get all three of these gateways, the Strand? Could at least draw up hypothetically and show us maybe what is resembling. We have the Strand, we have this one, and we have on the highway that this council's not informed of. Yeah, I always forget the name of that.
Yeah, the branding and wayfinding master plan from 2017 contemplated a gateway arch near the chamber building.
And what was that? The reconfiguration of the road there, what was that? It wasn't the river, it was the gateway?
Yeah, we called it a pedestrian plaza in front of the chamber, so it was a larger project.
We have the riverfront connector coming down. What do we call it from first going out? It was something
A corridor plan,
corridor.
yes. Yeah, and it recommended gateway features.
So there's actually three that,
Yeah, it's a good point. There are a lot of background documents that I think these firms would have to look at and make sure that they're consistent with the branding efforts that have already been done. Whether or not they all get designed now, I think as a question, if you have any thoughts about that, John, I think part of this is time is of the essence because we're undergrounding power for this location in particular. And ideally, installation could happen by the contractor who's already going to be out there mobilized doing the intersection work. So this one is a little bit more time sensitive, I think.
what do you think?
I would concur with that. The ones that are gonna be down on Cowlitz, not only do they have the entry feature, but they have the center turned around piece there, there's lenses. That's a really nice place to put on some public art. And that would be something really special that maybe it's something from a public process, maybe we partner with the private development to do some art installations.
I don't know, I'm just throwing it out there because I'm not artistic.
Yeah, this
All three shouldn't be looked at, considered.
This feature-
We talked about this internally.
Yeah, we did exactly this. This feature feels very much like an entry to the downtown, where the other feature feels like it could be incorporated into some type of art walk along the Riverwalk. They kind of feel separate in my head. Not to say that they can't be inspired by each other. I do think there's a connection.
What correlation will that have with the Main Street project too? You know what I mean, because that's Main Street. Well, maybe they might have something going on.
So as far as a stakeholder,
Well, they have their Main Street program and stuff that they've been working on, right? So that might be something that they're planning on looking at.
We would absolutely want to involve
yeah, that would
Amara.
be fantastic.
Yeah. I think
Process.
Main Street, one of their goals is placemaking, and this is an absolutely placemaking project. Yeah. So I think we are looking for some guidance between these two proposals. We wanted to give you some time to digest them. There's fees included. The proposals, although I don't think fee should be the only variable.
I don't either.
I wonder if Lower Columbia has some visual ideas that they could show us, because that's one thing that we're seeing here that we're not seeing from Lower Columbia. At least I didn't see it in there, so. Yeah, I'm a visual person, so.
Sure. Yeah, and we didn't really specify to include kind of inspiration images. I think that's what Akan kind of did on their cover sheet. Yeah. Any other questions?
But, you need like, maybe next meeting, some feedback.
Yeah, we're looking for a short notice.
Yeah.
Just dropped in your package. Just wouldn't expect you any kind of decision, but wanted to put it in front of you and talk about it. Looking at, when you see it.
Is there a possibility to do like a four-way arch there? Since, I mean, you can come down into downtown two different ways there in that intersection. So, looking at that Las Vegas one with the four-way arch. I think it would be nice to, I mean, not necessarily Las Vegas, but yeah, I know. It's, there's, you know, there's not one way to come through that, intersection, so. I think they're both pretty heavily used. The thought, four-way arch, some sort.
Okay, so let's go ahead and review our grant applications, but we're waiting. Yes, Tina?
Something that I just thought about is that the buses are just gonna get stuck in traffic at the end of fire.
Yeah.
Maybe not two buses.
Maybe, and we have a police escort.
They still ain't gonna get through a road, they're too tiny.
Give me a
Just
light.
thinking about.
You wanna go in a helicopter?
Just give me a light on the
Yeah,
old city
you're
truck.
right.
As long as I can drive the old city truck, give me a light on top.
Oh, God.
Okay, so
Community grants.
we have many grants. Looks like most people were reasonable in their ask of 500.
What's the pool still remaining?
How many do we have total?
How many requests?
Yes,
I wanna say 13, one, yeah.
Yeah, one of the. Or
Wow.
messages here, I believe, is that, you know, our city budget has a pool of funds for community grants, but we also use that money for. Citizens Day and a lot of other things, so there's really not a lot, when you. Yes. Other city too. So. Coming into this year's budget season, I think it might be, we're gonna continue this program. For years and years, we didn't do it just because we had to take care of our own needs first before we can come back out to the community. We
Yeah.
Brought those funds into the general fund to be able to provide services. And but we brought that back in some capacity, but it's at the expense of other things that you
sure.
plan.
So we were put like $5,000 in a budget for this.
For the year,
Yeah, for the year.
you're always gonna get ones like we had today that just.
Just 5,000 for community grants.
Yes, yes, just to be able to do this process and the asks. We're well over that with our applications.
So with we went to one round,
All of these.
what did we pick, did we do one round earlier in this fiscal year?
No, it was last year, I thought.
Yeah, it was
Last
last January. It was last January, and then in the middle of the year, we decided we're only gonna do it once a year.
Okay, just thank you for the reminder.
And could we see who were the recipients of the last one? Because I think that's a deciding factor also, is trying to let new people receive it.
It used to be, we were very specific about it. We did the senior center, we did SNAP benefits. Food bank.
Question for you. I know we took it out of the budget, but some of the stuff means arts and cultural. We used to have a budget for
I
it.
wrote that down because I remember looking
Yes.
that there was money allocated for that.
Is there any way we could pull this out of somewhere in funding if we were to support something like this here, other than what we currently have, John?
I would have to look at budget and see if that's. Still there and. I can't say with any confidence that it's still there, but
Yeah, I know, because we don't know what our financial director has done, but if it's there, you could potentially slide some over.
like a carry forward.
Yes.
Years past when there was
Yes.
a small. Like that, there was like 5,000 in there.
Okay, so
So these were last year's recipients, right?
Yeah. And there's not very many.
we did have Habitat for Humanity,
and then United Way. I think those are the only two.
That are reapplying. Well, I say, I mean, I don't think we should award those two just because they did have one recently and we have a lot of applicants, so.
Is the big Halloween parade something that can be funded through tourism dollars, the money profits we've gotten from events?
Yeah,
So that, I mean, so I think I would like to support them financially, but if they can be, we can support them. Otherwise. And prefer to do that. And I concur with council president Chilton about that we don't try to spread it out, that we not award to those who received last year at this time because of the scarcity of funds.
Can you come back to the list, Kathy?
Oh, sure.
And let's just, let's
So we
just,
got CASA.
how much money do we have available?
I'm sorry, I forgot to look.
Oh, my gosh.
It's on my list too.
Well, it looks like we got all kinds of money. We just leave it on the
But
staff.
we could put in $2,000.
Get
New
a,
house for you, new house for you.
You scroll down a little bit, Kathy.
Last time I looked, it was less than 3,000.
Oh, what was the CCMH? Was that the
That was-
Jordan Center?
That was last year's.
So yeah, that's not on here. They didn't apply this year.
Okay,
So we looked at last year's list to take off a couple that applied this year because we want to try to give new people chances.
yeah,
So what we have so far is that are newly applying and have not received it is CASA, Veterans Bunker, Griffin's Place, Key Club, the Main Street Alliance for they listen where those events.
I like the idea of that because it reaches out particularly to a population in our community that if you read Letty's narrative, I think there's a possibility the city sponsoring in some way, not only here, but also having a presence, a formal presence somehow there, to reach out to a portion of our population that is obviously contributes a lot, but is not necessarily visible in other of our public events, I think for a number of reasons, and it would be, I think, really important. And it seems to me that she's using the Main Street Alliance as the financial fiscal agent, working through them. So it's not so much to the, anyway, I really like that one because it does reach out to and serve possible reach out to our Spanish speaking residents and our Hispanic residents who do contribute an awful lot, but I think in some ways still do not feel always comfortable or welcome in the community. And it'd be a good way for the city to reach out.
I know, I'm looking at the St. Helens Lona Club, and I happen to know a little back information on that, is they could definitely use the security system up there for the, it is our building too, it is the building. So it would not be, it's kind of weird, it's kind of an investment into our building too, but.
The only hesitancy I have about that is I'm pretty sure we just got them a new, didn't we just give them a new air conditioning unit? Didn't we do that recently for them?
There was a heating and air, and that was actually, because it is part of our building. We do all that stuff for the senior center, nonprofit. We've actually dumped thousands and thousands of dollars into that one. So, but I do know that is definitely needed. They put 499. You didn't buy a penny. I don't know what the heck that was. But I do know that it's definitely could warrant, it also could access our park and our parking lot if we chose to point it in those directions. If the city wanted, and we do have control, the city actually has complete control of that building. Buck has been going in there and doing upgrades as far as the siding was starting to rot at the bottom. Facility maintenance has been doing.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying about that. I just, my only concern is that if we can, you know, I feel like we need to spread the love a little bit more with other things too.
So addicts and alcoholics don't deserve love.
If it's,
You know how long she's been trying to.
So why don't we all pick one?
if it's our,
Why don't we all just pick
Well,
one?
Well, I know what you're gonna pick.
Yeah.
No, I was.
if it's our if it's our building,
Yeah.
if it's our building, then can we fund it in another way? No, I think it's really important. It provides a definitely a very important
It's a great
service to our
service, it
community.
is.
And needs to do that, so,
But
Kind of sure
the
about
fentanyl situation is not,
No, no.
it's not getting any better. I'll tell you right now, I know firsthand on the forefront of the,
I should have known you were over there.
yeah. But that's a good point too, Patrick. You know, maybe that is something that we could,
It's our building and.
yes. I think we probably could through some type of,
$4.15 or what is it, 2,500 if we each pick one?
yeah, we could. That's why I said everybody just pick one.
Well, we might have to because there's just a lot of applicants. I don't know if there's any fair way to really.
spread.
All right, keep going down the list, cause I got sidetracked on the alarm. All right, senior center. Senior nutrition. Wheels, we donated to them last year, right? Is that one of the ones we done with? We didn't.
I think so.
It wasn't on their note.
That's
I did Ray and Habitat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Looking at that last one, Patrick, does the Friends of the Library do anything with the Dolly Parton imagination, or is that?
Yes, they're very much, they've been involved big time with it, yes. I'm not sure to what extent, but they, yes, are strong supporters and
We did
their
support that.
fundraising goes towards that, and they have other sources of funding.
It's a great program.
Yeah, we did it when our kids were little.
Yeah, mine too.
And you have like Maria, who's trying to, her grandson actually inspired the indoor skate park.
I know, that one is really close to my heart right there, you know, it's cute and they were.
What's yours?
I can't keep the veterans hanging though, I gotta, someone's gotta take the veterans book.
Arts and cultural, that's they are tribute to veterans, Century Curials Portrait Gallery project event, as did I hear we had. Perhaps through arts and cultural, some money
Maybe potentially.
available, potentially, so that. Yeah, I mean, we could.
The teacher in you is just trying to give everybody, find a way to give everybody something.
All right, let's go ahead and kick this up to tonight. And we'll make our decisions, but we have really a good discussion now, and I think everybody be thinking about their one. Okay, long and hard, and then we can have this discussion. And maybe we can check with finances and see if there's any. Arts and cultural department, okay? And we know what budget we have, so we don't even know exactly what we have right now.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
All right. Okay, so, let's go ahead, Paul, wait on your guys.
They're on their way. You just make.
We need it for a whole agenda.
Kill some time with my report perhaps, or.
Probably 10 minutes.
Never heard John's report.
All right, well, you're.
Yeah, good.
All right, so let's go on to our next item, which is our city administrator report.
my notes here. All right, at the last several meetings, I've been talking about the urgency and the need to get a finance director on board. Council participated in some interviews. We've been working with those applicants to the second round of interviews. Being round, the first round and the second round. And we really got really comfortable with one of the candidates. We offered her the position and she's panic about it. Then the background reference checks, and so checking out, we have one more reference to check, and then we should be good to go. Negotiating on terms. And would be available in
Perfect.
which would be March 15th, and she's already given notice, so. Really exciting news, and Chris will be working on the press release. Coming out. There'll be some admin liaison mayor kind of negotiations perhaps on expenses and things like that. Yet to happen. So yeah, we're really happy about that. Staff's excited, everybody's feeling really good about it. The auditor is upstairs right now. Finally, we've got her on board. And Ben Ellison.
Us talking about our.
Heard positions, so I figure I'm gonna come down here, break it down on my computer upstairs.
Yeah, maybe we can work on the money in the arts and cultural to see if there's anything there for projects, and then
Just emailing.
And then what the city council has in their budget.
remaining in the capital fund.
Yeah. You can do that, that'd be great.
Came down here.
Don't back up that bell. Come on.
I feel like you're hiding from me, Mr. Ellis.
Well, I didn't like the answer I gave you, but that was the answer I had, so.
Anyway, so it's very glad to have a finance director in the mix. And let John Ellis go back to being retired, but she's graciously.
Yes, thank you, John. Thank you for coming
We have
back.
lots of more planning commission,
Yes.
lots of ways to be involved.
But you have to live in city limits, though.
Oh,
The reward for good work is more work.
Yes.
this is volunteer too.
So related to finance, the finance director is the budget, which is coming up. So we've been looking at the budget calendar. Just to see where we are compared to last year. So usually we start pretty early, and John's been putting together some
Well,
scenarios for looking at the calendar. We're really not that far off our normal, but should be just fine.
I'll have a detail calendar for Tuesday's management.
Great.
Back with some worksheets for them.
Yes, I was encouraged when I met with you last week that it wasn't, oh, it's all bad, it's all bad. Reactions, it's not looking good.
It's good and bad. Yeah, but we don't have many cups, there's only one cup.
So still related to finance, when we, Jamie Edwards moved from the utility billing position into the accountant position, we had a vacancy in utility billing, so part of her time now is kind of bouncing back and forth to make sure that that's recovered downstairs. We pushed the position back out for an announcement to recruit a new person to that position. We have 100, just short of 150 applications or so. And this time for the a lot, but that's a lot to go through, and we'll be.
Good paying job. I looked at it. Good job.
And it's an important job. Customer service is the front door of the city, and we need to have the right people answering the door and being accountable and responsive. And I'm sure there's many well qualified in that pile, but we some good ones to interview. And I mentioned the audit. Engineering is also working to fill their workload with all the construction. We've authorized that engineering tech one position. We got interviewed for that and had second interviews, and they've made an offer that's not that confirmed, but there's. We didn't get 150 for that.
How many do you get?
I don't know exactly, but it was. It wasn't 5 in 5 months, so. So that's exciting to give. Hamid and Sharon are just. Aaron and Alex are just super busy with all the construction. That's going on. I actually had a chance to go down and the site walk down there and walk the inspection with Alex, our engineer, after the construction inspection, see monitor the progress down there yesterday. The Cheyenne is really nice. They're really going. They're hitting a lot of rocks, so they slow down a lot. So we're getting some complaints of banging brook. I can hear that should take miles away from there. But
Everyone says on concerned citizens, just fireworks.
Floating anything, but that's chipping away at the rock. So yeah, that's going along nicely. It started really slow, but it seems to be building energy and coming this way. And really the impacts are going to be when we get into the downtown.
Yeah.
Where we're tearing up the street corners and but
When it all slows down,
Yeah.
it shrinks on.
yeah, the whole issue of parking and like right now, most of it's all taken offline, a whole lot. And we're gonna hopefully, we don't know this contractor schedule entirely, but
Little swap from it.
hopefully we can open some back up to have some parking. That relief out there. Recreation, I've been working with Shauna. She's doing fantastic things with rec. There's 310 kids signed up for basketball. That's supported by 46 volunteers, which I hired a high school referee to do that. That's wrapping up here in a little bit. Partnership school district are really fine. They're continue to grow. The ESD's been real supportive of our programs too. They're offering some funding. And we're looking at a partnership with the school. It's up to 400,000 a year for 5 years. So it's pretty big level there. We can get that. Recreation's going to be in a place where pretty well sustained, self-sustaining for a while. So that's a good place to be. Earlier we mentioned fireworks and the fireworks status. The E2C's contract specifically says to work with a community organization so what was mentioned about in the paper was factually correct. That her role is to work with the community organization, right? So we have not done the fireworks agreement with Western Display yet. I know that Brad Hendrickson at St. Helens Marina has purchased a small barge and so it's offered that, so that will more than likely be a solution for getting a show on a barge out there. Good. And
Is it gonna, but question for that would make sure the fire marshal is gonna approve it way before even Western.
we learned a lot of lessons last year.
Yes, we did, didn't we? Me and John showed up and was like, oh no. Oh no, no. And the guy's like, yeah, there's plenty of room on there. There was, but it was not good. Was it? That's all I gotta say about that.
That's fine.
Well, just, you and I doing 90% of the work, everybody else is waiting around waiting for us.
So, yeah, lastly, maybe not quite lastly, but Wyden's Town Hall, over at the Merriweather there, Councilor Berkeley was there on Saturday. Good turnout, Paul was there, thanking the city for thanking the senator for their appropriations, and there's actually a fair amount of appropriations to our community that are not just the advanced manufacturing awards. There was a technology award to the police for $364,000. There was an award to Life Empowered for their facility up there that will be a community development block grant that the city has agreed to sponsor when they get to that point. And I think
Was
there's
that a $400,000 for design?
500. Yeah.
500? Yeah. It's good.
So yeah, it's a lot of good stuff. So Re-Armitage is now taking over for Fritz Graham, longtime Fritz Graham. And today we're supposed to see a congressional directed spending package drop and see what that looks like, what programs and projects we can potentially go after to get an appropriation, the federal legislation. I have a lot more information than that, but it's. We haven't seen it yet, so we'll evaluate once it drops.
All right. Yep, all right.
Good.
Paul?
All right.
Yeah.
Well, no,
Wait for you.
They're actually outside.
I'm not allowed to exceed the
Outside,
15 minutes, so.
ignoring you, they're outside ignoring you. Who's out there?
They've been out there for a little while.
I've been ignored by better people than them.
Is a snowman out there?
No, what, hey, John, what's up with the snowman outside? We're gonna bring those inside at some point since
All
we're all
right.
in work.
Sure.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and get a semi-annual report from CSAT, Columbia Economic.
I'm just gonna share it.
You know what? You ever- This is fall, right? There we go. Okay. We'll start with a thank you for, well, first of all, for the city's membership in the organization, but also partnership in a number of initiatives, one of which is going to be an action item on your agenda tonight. We'll talk a little bit about that. Collaboration with the staff on many, many things. I wouldn't say weekly, but almost weekly. And it's been great to work with the various departments, but also this council's engagement and accountability. I mean, I started giving these reports during a time of concern with our organization, as you all as a member. And you really helped kind of clarify the picture for us in terms of engagement and accountability. And we offer, but you were one of you were the only city that regularly requests an update, and we appreciate that because it helps us keep ourselves accountable. Also helps spur, and I'm sorry, Councilor Morton is no longer here. We sent out a digital version of our annual report. We've got a couple of copies here. Councilor Morton wanted numbers in it, and there are numbers in it this year. Yeah, so I invite you to take a look at that, or you can download it from our website. But this is an important thing for us to do, is to come and talk with you. We've tended to maybe overload you with information to demonstrate that we actually had upped our adrenaline level. We'll just hit you with some highlights today, but happy to answer any questions you've got. In terms of governance of CET, you've got some new counselors here with the elections. We had some changes as well. City of Scappoose is a member. Commissioner Jaime are retired. So Mayor Joe Backus from the city of Scappoose was voted on the board. Casey Garrett, County Commissioner. Dr. Karen Sanders is a significant addition. She's the Dean of Applied and Advanced Technology at PCC. And PCC OMIC Training Center is only one of her responsibilities, but her commitment to this community by joining that board, our board is a significant one for the future of that facility. And then former Senator Betsy Johnson, who also they've been a member of Transwestern Aviation. She joined the board as well, and already is kind of earning her pay, which is because she still has remarkable connections with state agencies and the folks who actually do the work, as opposed to the folks who get the content of the work.
Great asset.
Yes, it is.
The face to the name.
She also creates a little work too. Let me be clear on that. All worthwhile.
And then we've also increased our membership by 2, and we're looking for 15 more members, accepting 15 more members. So if you know businesses, particularly the cities, the municipalities, the port, the county are all members already, but we would love to increase our business membership.
Sure.
By a bit. So if you got thoughts on that, we're more than happy to talk to anyone. Stakeholder and initiative engagement, I'll just touch on a couple of these. We did, as John mentioned, we did receive $814,000 for the planning and the engineering of an advanced and additive small business incubator at OMIC. So we're about to sit down and start into the planning phase of that. A couple of highlights on there. There's a great career fair going on at PCC Training Center in April. We're supporting. There's a new director there. You should meet Patty Hawkins if you can. She's I was on the interview panel and she's terrific, and they're also elevating the industry and community outreach position at PCC. So we'll look forward to that next year. I want to thank you particularly for, and maybe this goes to John, for sending Shauna to the childcare and business initiative. We kind of reconvened that group last week with Northwest ESD and childcare referral and resource. And she had a lot of great input, a lot of great insight. We're coming up with some ideas. We got some comparable plans that we're going to look at adapting for Columbia County to address that. It's not a tomorrow solution. It's not even a simple solution, but we've got a great group coming together, and Shauna was terrific on that. The county facilities is kind of a generalization. The John Gum building, which is in your historic district, it's in your downtown. We've been very involved in grant writing. Councilor Sundin was also involved from a historical perspective, because none of us knew the important stuff that we needed to write in the National Park Service grant. So he provided that. Been many hands involved. These are all supplemental to some of the other budget items to get that building squared away. We're selfishly interested. That's where our home will be. And so that is all moving forward, and we're coordinating with our partners locally on a capital projects coordination. Something that Senator Johnson was particularly adept at when she was in office was making sure we all had ready lists of projects for legislative opportunities and congressional opportunities, and so we're coordinating with our partners county to get those pulled together. We talk a little bit about tourism, Oregon Media Day. Why would we bring that up? I bring that up because that occurred. It's national media showed up. I don't think there was any international, but national media showed up at this hosted event in Portland. And it was just a few days after the groundbreaking for the downtown redevelopment. And we talked about that with folks who know St. Helens from the East Coast, from California, from other places. And when we talked about that, combined with the Main Street program, with the overall master plan development, with some of the restaurant activity that's going on with Sand Island, people got really excited about it. They were very excited to hear that there's redevelopment going on in St. Helens. I was surprised at the level of awareness, and I was surprised, frankly, at the level of excitement. I wanted to mention that because that's important when it comes to not just events, but year-round tourism as it develops. And there are a lot of fans of St. Helens who are looking forward to this being the place they come to get on the river. We did receive a capacity grant for a branding exercise. We're getting some match pulled together, and there'll be a stakeholder process, and we'll be involving folks from all of the communities going forward, kicking that off in a couple of weeks. Destination development is something we're very focused on, and we're included in this year. They're focusing on destination downtown and main streets, and paired with the Main Street program, perfect timing. And that will be a collaborative process with stakeholders to develop priorities. We're a bit of a challenge for them. We got 6 downtowns, But we think there's really good collaboration in this county and it'll work. Governor's, the competitive grants, those will be grants to organizations, businesses, others that can be applied for. We believe that those will be upcoming. Travel Orion's going through a little reorganization, and so timing isn't certain, but we'll let folks know and we'll be supportive of grants being written. Governor's Tourism Conference, that's gonna be in the Portland area. I'm not suggesting you necessarily go, although it's very, very interesting. We got some money to be a sponsor, and Walla and I were talking about it. We didn't want to be the name tag sponsor or the card key sponsor. We decided to sponsor an event because they have evening events that the attendees can go to. So we created an event which is going to be nocturnal kayaking out of Scappoose Bay. We've got a number of businesses and the ports involved, and including food trucks and adult beverages and transportation there and back so they can enjoy the adult beverages. A little bit of music, maybe not karaoke, but a little bit of music. It sold out in 36 hours, including 2 state tourism commissioners. So we'd rather get them out here than give them a tchotchke that they can take home with them wherever they're going. So that'll be on April 4th. And so if you hear a bunch of noise, Scappoose Bay, that's what's going on there. Small business, touch on a couple of highlights here. The Small Business Development Center is almost in March will be a year old. Even so, it's Jason has already got over 85 clients that he's working with. He's partnering with Keep It Local on the marketing series that's underway. And the volume of clients is such that excuse me, he's seeking additional funding out of the state network for hiring of a part-time advisor, contractor, as well as some administrative help. And that's the benefit of being in the network, is that they do have some of these funds available so we can supplement. The downside of being in a network, well, it's a two-sided coin. I love the accountability and the systems that they have in place, but they're pretty overbearing at times, and he has to spend a lot of time doing those. So that's part of the reason for the support help. But majority of the clients are women, and there is a strong representation from St. Helens among the client portfolio. Keep It Local holiday campaign set a record-breaking year last year in December. Almost $560,000 in revenue generated through that, which is tracked through the coupons and the scratch offs and the cards and that sort of thing. Nearly a 10% increase in the businesses participating as sponsors of it. And they are currently, Keep It Local is currently putting on the digital marketing series. It's free as well. It's a second wave. They did one in the fall, doing a second one now. Next week's class, I think, is on Facebook and Instagram, which whether you planned that game or not, it's part of the game. And it's how to promote, one way to promote your business. And then website SEO is the following session, and then selling best practices for online selling will be the following week on that, and people can RSVP for free on Eventbrite. And then the end of this month, the new Keep It Local website will launch. That will be a comprehensive business directory for the county. Basically a search engine for any kind of business in Columbia County. It's been a little while in the making. That'll be launching at the end of February. And business is robust among small businesses. And we've got recession peeking around the corner. We got inflation, but retail actually is holding fairly strong locally. So third leg of the stool is something that I think you have an action item on the agenda for, and it's growing rural Oregon. It's something that the city of St. Helens was selected for by the Ford Family Foundation. We were glad to be included in the planning and the discussion and learning about the thing, and went to some workshops. And as it developed, as we learned more, it became pretty apparent that it would actually fit really well with CET alongside Keep It Local and the SBDC, because it's related. There's some overlap, but it's an entirely different a different track, which is the entrepreneurial ecosystem. And Rachel Berry kind of led the charge on this. We helped with the application. There's a great committee of folks, some of us sort of the usual suspects, but small businesses as well. Very excited about this. Main Street's very involved in it. We hold interviews this week, I think, for the Navigator that's funded through this program. We're very excited about it and the way it aligns and creates kind of a whole pie of support and beneficial services for small businesses here. So John tells me that you all are way up to speed on GROW, and I would just add my vote. I'd be silly not to encourage you to approve the MOU. It just continues our partnership and working together, and the accountability, and we will run the program well for you. Business recruitment and retention, I'll just touch on these quickly. We're competing for several projects. Next Renewables is starting into another permitting phase. Danson's Corporation, I want to give you an update on them since you've met them. They have 2 other projects. You may recall that they're similar plants that they're building around the country. They're getting close to finishing those, and I talked to the lead on Monday, and he said that they are now revisiting the PSA with Armstrong, a revised PSA, just given the timing. There's a lot of sequencing and deliverables and that sort of thing. So they're revisiting the PSA. They expect to sign that soon. And we've got them connected with Business Oregon, working on some potential programs and financing tools as well. So that is back up and operating. Project Stamper is an aviation manufacturing we are very keen on in Scappoose. Project Stamper and Project Dame are 2 projects that we that we work very closely with the Port of Columbia County on, so we're pushing hard on those together. You can't talk about the wins without talking about the losses. So Project Alfred, which I think I've told you about, it's a huge food hydroponic growing operation. We came in second. We know why. We learned a lot of lessons. Some of them I'll talk about in a second, but actually ended up developing some new relationships with state regulatory agencies and local land use and the cities and private property owners, and learning some lessons that City of Rainier is actually putting into play right now. So we hate not getting it, but we'll end up better positioned to compete, particularly in an area like Rainier. A number of local business expansions and relocations around the community are underway. Many of you probably know about those, and we're involved, as is the SBDC on the business advising side. We got some regional relocation work we're working on, trying to help people discover Columbia County and maybe escape some problems they're having in Portland. So we're talking with 2 companies on that in that regard. And the indoor skate park. Maria's a persistent woman, and she's also an extremely helpful woman. She led the interview panel for our SBDC and has helped us out on a bunch of things. We got her connected with Northwest STEM Hub, which looks like they've got a program. They'll get funding to her for one of their youth programs for the designs and manufacturers, and works with a custom skateboard designer. It's a direct career skills program. So they met Monday. We're meeting again on the 2nd on site, but STEM Hub says they can give her money. So that's a good thing. Plus, I just know, well, that doesn't mean Marie's not going to be back. So I know she will, but that's such a great project. We're working on a couple of things to help that happen. Moving forward, issue of the day is really land or land use. I mean, you're hearing a lot about it from the legislature. I was on a phone call with Representative Stout on the way out here today around the state semiconductor task force and semiconductor legislation. We were able to get a number of Columbia County businesses included in this advocacy piece because we want semiconductor plants here, or we think we can handle them here. Not necessarily. What this really is all about is land use from our perspective. And in order to do some of the things they want to do, somebody's gonna need some super siting authority, or we're gonna have to deal with the land use system in Oregon in one way or another. And we're trying to ride that train a bit to get some land use changes and also elevate our awareness. Because if you hear these folks talking, they say there isn't any land near the Silicon Forest over 50 acres. Well, we've got that. But the proponents don't really want to talk about that because we sort of rain on their argument. But there's a perception problem and there's an awareness problem with Columbia County and what can be done out here and how much land is available out here. That's fine. We want to ride the train. It is going to get some changes made with regard to land use regulation. And we also want to ride the train to elevate our awareness and perception as part of this larger discussion around maybe not semiconductors, but certainly allied industries and businesses that support the semiconductor and the tech industry can much more easily be cited here. So we're sort of a bit player in that argument. We are fortunate to have a relationship with a firm that's helping manage this for Oregon Business and Industries. So we were invited to be included and glad to include folks like Pacific Stainless, which I don't know, Lam Research is probably 60% of Pacific Stainless business. And so we're in the semiconductor industry here, whether you know it or not. New developments on the Parker and Baker properties in Scappoose. We had a meeting with Scott Parker last week and some folks on his team. They are taking a brand new dusted off approach, consolidating some properties and getting ready to fully develop the land directly across from Omic, which is, there's a lake there now. There's land to be developed around it. They've got some pretty close to shovel ready property right on West Lane Road. But some changes have taken place, personal and professional changes have taken place with Scott Parker and his partners, and they are ready to rock and roll. So that's going to add 60-70 acres of industrial property right across from Omic, which is a good thing. And they're very committed, very focused. I mentioned Alfred, some changes in Rainier. We missed out on that project because of land use compatibility. The only satisfactory property we could find up there was outside the UGB, and the process of getting that included and being able to serve it was longer than they had the patience for. And you can understand that. They gave us a lot of time to work with them. They love the idea of being here. But when it will take you 18 months to 2 years to do a UGB swap or an expansion or get an exception, these people are part of the commodity economy. They can't wait that long. So that is a big reason we lost. Rainier has picked up the torch and is now making some moves regarding its urban growth boundary and some exchanges and some other things, which may not have happened this quickly if we had not been in this intensive conversation around Alfred and partnered with them. So we're supporting that, but it just points back to, it's about land use. The last property I'd like to talk about is of dual importance tonight. St. Helens Industrial Site is something that, you know, I've talked with this council a couple of times about bringing prospects here, and the problem we ran into is the amount of time it would take to prepare the site for actual buildable development. And nevertheless, we've talked to a number of folks and had some people out on the site, and in conjunction with Rachel and the team, the city's ability to address site development as opposed to roads and, you know, in the city development and redevelopment is challenging. It's a long-term thing to be in the site development business, and it's not necessarily the top priority for the city to be doing that. So with those priorities in mind, it's always going to be a longer term thing, but the city's fortunate to actually own that property, and with it, the water rights and other property that it purchased in that exchange. moving forward, two things that we're talking about, luck and relationships. And in my view, luck is the convergence of opportunity and preparedness. And relationships matter in everything, and you're all elected leaders, you know that. I have a colleague that I've worked with a number of times in the past on some visible projects and some not so visible projects. We have developed a professional and personal relationship over time. A year ago, I got to work with him again. He was working with Oregon Business and Industries on the Manufacturing Roadshow that you may remember came through and stopped as its first stop on the at OMIC on the way around the state. And we even talked a bit when he was working with Mal Foster on some city issues and that sort of thing. Came to me because he has a client that has an unusual business that they're in. And because I had been pimping him so hard on, you need to get clients out to Columbia County. Awareness and perception, You got to see what we got to do. And he's familiar with many of our parcels out here. So Chris introduced me to a company called RestorCap. I met with RestorCap and I said, what do you do? Well, we're looking for distressed properties. First property that came to mind was the St. Helens industrial site. It's not distress in the sense that it is a Superfund site, but it is distress in the sense of its developability, the wetland issues, environmental issues that need to be addressed, as well as just making it buildable from clearing out old structures, old material, that sort of thing, making it buildable. That's what gets in the way of a company coming in here and saying, we want a site here, because you can't finance that as part of your deal. The remediation work, nobody wants to bank that. RestorCap has a different business model. They have very deep pockets. They have a deep understanding of how to redevelop these sites, and that's what they do. Their business model is successful and allows them to monetize credits, monetize certain aspects of the remediation, but turn these things into leasable and purchasable sites. A lot of properties came to mind, but St. Helens came to mind first because it's not a massive environmental cleanup like a Superfund. It has multiple challenges, and they seem like they'd be good fit to perhaps address that. So they're unique, they're self-financed, unique to my knowledge. Self-financed, they've got a track record that speaks for itself, but they can also speak for it. And they've got a strong interest in working with the city to address the St. Helens industrial site. They've indicated that interest, and I asked them to be here today to tell you a little bit about themselves and let you ask some questions if you get the time to do that.
Excellent.
Gentlemen. The shy men coming up are Rob and Andy.
I'm Andy.
Hey, neighbor, you're Rob. Oh, sure.
Hi, I'm Rob Marinine. This is Andy Gregg, my partner. I'm president of RestorCap and his general counsel and partner. Did we sent some slides earlier or yesterday? I wonder if they made it to.
That was the second attachment. I said, with the revision. Yes, you did.
That's the least glitchiest transition we've ever done.
Thank you.
I'm so glad I spelled it right when I wrote it down here.
Wow, yeah.
So we've been. If you go to the next slide, right? If you back up one, just to this, I think this slide tells a little bit about what our company does.
as Paul said, we're not self-financed, but we have the ability to finance large scale projects without going to banks. So we don't have to worry about qualifying for loans and those kinds of things. Our core business is doing restoration and remediation and reuse. And there's not, it's a unique business model because there's very few companies out there who can combine those three areas of restoration or property development and self-finance that way. So in this context, the restoration is on natural systems. That's doing a stream restoration, mitigation banks, fisheries restoration, those types of things. Remediation are brownfields, sites that are contaminated that need to be cleaned up. And then reuse is finding a public benefit for aspects of those properties that the public can enjoy, and also to use different finding other ways of creating value from what the site is now, where people don't really see the value. So in the confluence of the overlap of the Venn diagram, those are projects that we're currently working on in the area. There's the Linton Mill site, and we'll go through those in a little bit. McCormick and Baxter site. We have a site in Northern California, Fort Bragg, which was also forestry related. It was an old bark landfill site that we're restoring and finding use for the bark. And then the Rivergate property, which was Time Oil property on the Willamette. So next slide. Just to talk about some of our projects. This is the Linton Mill restoration site. We 2016, that's the year that we acquired it. In 2022, that's what it looks like today from basically the same vantage point. We created that for NRD credits for the Portland Harbor Superfund site. And also we've created waters credits or mitigation bank credits for people who need those types of credits for work on the river.
NRD.
Natural resource damages. So that's the flip side of the cleanup part of CERCLA. So our bank here covers both the cleanup side and the natural resource damages side of things.
So yeah, under Superfund, just real quickly, a responsible party has to clean it up, pay for cleanup, but they also have to compensate for lost resources too. And so what we did is we created a resource and we created credits by doing that. And then they can buy our credits to settle their resource damages claims against them.
So you're familiar with our site being a very well-used industrial site. It still is a deep water port, and still, I mean, we don't see a lot of credits being down there. We see more reuse than anything else down there.
And we do too.
And yeah, imagine this is credits for McCormick and Baxter.
No, this is credits for the Portland Harbor Superfund site, for the whole Superfund site along the river.
Okay, through the state or Portland itself, or is this company?
Federal.
The federal side of it, because there's three different. So you have the feds, the state, and Portland all on the hook for that, and then all the businesses along the way.
Right. There's like 148 different responsible parties.
$4 or $5 billion project, probably more. Really.
Some
I'm right. Yes, they do.
Yeah, we hear too, but
I'm right.
yeah.
Okay.
The part of that is to offset the damages to the river. Rivergate, which is the former Time Oil, that's near where Linton is. It's across the river down there, closer to Sauvie Island. We acquired this one in 2015, was it? No, 2020.
We got under contract. Yeah.
Under contract 2020. We completed the remediation of it this summer. But on the bottom, you see that was part of the final remedy. We encapsulated the contaminating materials there and then put a cap over it and managed it. So, and this was all done with DEQ. We worked with DEQ all along the way. We got a prospective purchaser agreement in place. We indemnify ourselves and for future landowners from the environmental liabilities on the site. And this site is currently under contract. In fact, there was an article about it in the Portland Business Journal just yesterday, I think, because a battery storage facility that stores renewable energy is buying it from us to use it.
So they can build on that. You put that safely into the ground and now they can build on it.
Yes, and the site is 40 acres. What you're seeing there is about 3 or 4 acres.
Okay.
So that's just one part of it that we got the approval to remediate the site.
Both of those sites have been sitting idle for over 20 years. This was a bankruptcy site and nobody wanted to touch it because of that contamination. And we actually use Mall Foster for this one. I know you guys have worked with them out on the waterfront. And they provided a really creative solution and now, as Rob said, it's going back into use, which is what we like to see. So.
And we broke ground on the remediation of this site in June and it was completed in November. So once you get things going, it can happen very quickly. It's the planning and figuring out what to do, which takes the time. Mm-hmm. And by the way, on the other side, the Linton site, that site had been sitting idle since 2000. So it was sitting idle for about 20 years. Mm-hmm. So part of our business model is to take these sites that are sitting idle for a long time and getting them back into economic use.
And we constructed that site in a summer as well. So
yeah,
People that bought into that bill that lost a lot of money.
yeah, I mean, it was a lot of people's retirement account because it was a co-op.
Yeah, that's right.
And so, it was really unfortunate.
2 other sites, just to mention briefly. One is the McCormick and Baxter. It's a creosoting site. This is a Superfund site on its own. This is about 2 miles down from St. John's Bridge.
Yeah, it's right below University of Portland, right below the bluffs there.
Okay.
So this site, we are in the final stages of buying it from McCormick. And it's already been remediated. You can see the area there where the cap is. So we're going to use the site for industrial purpose near the railroad track at the top of the screen. And then we're also going to dedicate part of the site for public benefit, for river access, river walks, and restore it to natural conditions as much as the remediation system can allow. We have to be very careful about, doing that. Well, yeah, we can't, for example, on that cap area, it kind of looks like a racetrack.
Yeah.
That we can't plant trees there because trees would penetrate into what's buried there. And, so you have to be very careful about those kinds of things. So
that was obviously the main creosote area of the plant.
Yeah. And it also goes into the river. So there's a lot of submerged lands there that are also capped. So
We have the port has something similar down here. It's fine. Yeah.
So our background in our company's background, virtually everybody in our company spent their entire careers doing environmental restoration or environmental cleanup or environmental finance. So we're not really Johnny come latelys to these kinds of projects. We have decades in, as we get older, more decades than we care to admit of experience in these things. And I think that the regulatory community really recognizes that. And in fact, the DEQ is the one who told us that we should try to look at this site after our Linton site and the Time Oil site, because we had worked very well with them to get things done. And so it's rare that a regulator like that will give you leads to projects. So that's kind of
Especially, if I may say, DEQ.
Wanna clean this one up too?
And then the last one, just to talk about, this is a site down in Fort Bragg in Northern California, but it is it's 200 acres, about 50 acres of which is buried bark landfill site from their lumber mill that was there. And it's a water board listed, state listed landfill. And so our approach on this is we think that there's value in the bark that's buried there. And we can get carbon credits and a product called biochar and other things out of it, and close the landfill from the water board in the process. So we're just in the early stages of that one, but it just goes to illustrate that we look at these projects a little bit differently about how where people view them as kind of a headache. We try to find the hidden value in some of these challenging projects.
Sure.
So this is just a little description of our process and it's not sequential, these things really happening simultaneously, but we do, very thorough document review to get to figure out, what's there, what's not. Along with that, we evaluate the existing environmental conditions. So we see where the liabilities are, what mechanisms do we take to mitigate the liabilities. And there are a variety of ways to do that, both technically and through insurance.
I know that spot that's Milton Creek, right?
Right.
I know that spot very well. My dog and I spent many a summer evening cooling our heels in the creek there.
Yeah, that was
Permitted use.
Yeah.
That was one of our biologists was just up here last week, and she's actually very, very excited about this project.
You looked at everything besides industrial area, the whole thing, right?
Not in a systematic way, we just kind of on visits and
It's a very unique chunk of property, because it has both not only very environmental friendly lands that are down there. With the bluffs and the creek and the little ponds, and the deer and the frogs and the pheasants and everything else, but we also have a truck route and a waterway all right there. And so we are looking at it as kind of maybe mixed use in some areas, and industrial, all zone industrial, but creating parks down there too. And I know you guys purchase properties, and that would be one of our highest goals would be that old park down there. You can actually walk down and you'll see the old park benches.
Well, if you go back to that first slide with the circles, you see, I mean, that's really what we do is we try to get the confluence of those things. And not to sacrifice one from the other, but one of our core values is to preserve on that one here, like preserve and protect the natural resources. So we try to incorporate that as much as possible into recognizing that a lot of you need an economic driver for a lot of these types of things. And so what we try to do is create an economic driver that will also fuel the preservation of the natural resources, those.
The way you said pheasants?
Yeah. Well, everything down there.
Wow.
I don't know, if somebody raises a pheasant over here like on Third Street, you'll see it occasionally. You'll see it occasionally on the road and like, that's a pheasant. Yeah. That's.
That's why I was asking about the big picture, because there are so many different parts to it, and I mean, it's a really big pie. So I'm not necessarily saying we have to bite the whole thing, but it's important that we know all the other pieces too, when if we're just gonna look at one piece to fix, the other pieces play a part to it, because it is such a big.
Yeah, no, we would look at it almost kind of as a mixed use property, but mixed use with the natural preservation and public access, whatever the industrial use could be, that makes sense. So that's a type of from our view, that's a type of a mixed use project.
Sure, and so our vision is to fill the lagoon, ultimately with whatever dredge spoils we find that will work in there. Because it's 39 acres and it's a secondary for a primary, to move the sewer over and actually be able to also use the in-water piece of all that property too. Which Boise itself is on the hook for that in-water stuff, or Office Max, I'm not sure. It's Office Max, but the liability of it. And we also have a lease with Cascade Tissue down there. On a 25 acre footprint. And we have sold potentially 8 acres, further discussion on that. But we see that, be utilized as a river walk coming down too, kind of, and maybe potential marina.
Or park in there.
Yeah. So, I don't know what you guys see. I mean, you just need to know what the goals and visions are of us too, and I'm sure John's maybe expressed a little bit of that, or maybe you haven't got that far, I don't know.
But I mean, we're at the very beginning stages, so it's kind of like it's a blank canvas.
But it checks a lot of boxes for us as a company, and that's what's really intriguing about this property. It's like Rob said, it's the natural part of it, it's the industrial part of it, and that's the kind of stuff that we really like to get involved in.
Sounds like it's your cup of tea.
Budding property right here, we're dumping 10 million in just civil engineering and putting pipe in the ground. Right, I mean, the abutting property right here.
Yeah, it's
Right now, as we speak.
I was telling John and Rachel, some of the city staff, it was a bit of a surreal experience going out on the site with these guys, because they're coming at it from a completely different angle. Usually when you're on a site with a prospect that you want to build something, you're trying to minimize the blemishes, tell them how you'll help them through the challenges and the problems and work with the regulatory agencies and all this. And these guys are standing out there with a couple of other folks and they're saying, okay, we like that. And are there other problems? And what about this? And what about the wetlands? And they're looking for issues, because that's what they do, is they resolve those and they end up with a reusable piece in whatever the use is that you want to come together with. And so when you combine that, one of the first things we also did was talk with them about the city's master plan for development in the riverfront development and those things. And you combine these things, you can see why we got excited to meet them. Because that's one of our biggest challenges is properties that the capital isn't there to develop at this point, where there's challenges in the way and the property owner isn't ready. So we spent some time with them. They've actually looked into all this stuff and more than I knew they had. They understand, you know, the upland issues and all of that. This is a city decision, certainly, but we also see it as a great city opportunity. And as your partner, we wanted to at least introduce them to you and tell you that our conversations with them have been good. We're familiar with. Actually, Chris and I worked on the Portland Harbor Superfund project from a couple of different angles, so we got some familiarity there. But these are the kind of folks that we'd like to introduce to you to see if it matches up with the city's plans and what you might like to do. We see the possibilities of dramatically accelerating the buildability of the St. Helens industrial site, generating revenue and jobs. And
I think it's very timely when Councilor Chilton and I were elected. One of the first things we approved was the industrial business plan. That was one of the first items where we formally adopted that. It's been a couple of years since I think we've really looked at it. So I think this is very timely, especially with our new counselors, to look at that, because I think when we adopted the plan, I know when I voted for it was with the understanding that it was a work in progress. This was a framework from which we could develop things. So I think it's very very timely that you are here, because I think it is something that we do need to revisit, and it's great to hear this. The acronym LOI up there, finalize the LOI, means they have
Letter of intent.
Okay. Gotcha.
And then you guys are aware that we have a police station that we're building in that area too.
Yeah, I mean, we would certainly, if we were fortunate enough to move forward, we would want to incorporate the offsite or the public improvements and how everything would all be integrated. I think it's a unique opportunity,
Yeah. And your interest is in the entire property?
Well, right now, I mean, we're just kind of scratching the surface,
Okay,
right?
just kind of.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Everything we do is at risk, at our own risk money. So, we're reticent to really spend a ton of until.
Right, that's just it.
It's all about due diligence.
You're investigating it.
For. Risk management, this is what we do. Yeah, that's not an issue. Well, that might be. Figure out.
Well, I love it. I thank you guys for coming, and thank you, Paul, for bringing them in. Appreciate that.
And the two gentlemen back there are your crew?
Yeah, obviously, one of
Chris Edmonds.
Chris.
Yeah, I'm Chris Edmonds. I'm the local guy here, fifth generation Oregonian, and Paul and I have worked together for a long time. My background on this, just so you know, kind of the team and how it works. My background is I do public affairs and strategy consulting primarily. I've worked with both of our U.S. senators, members of Congress, and am the consultant that Paul mentioned that he had a relationship who's working with the Oregon Semiconductor Task Force. So that's what we do, and that's kind of the value I think I bring to the Restricap team is managing relationships and policy.
My name is Michael Alberta. I came to have Molly's Danish and coffee around the corner. Seriously.
Well, we already did there. That's good.
Seriously, just a technical advisor on the real estate side.
Thank you, welcome.
All right, well, appreciate Paul, you bringing in these gentlemen and introducing us, and look forward to, definitely, I would say, I mean, there's an interest for let you guys explore the property, do some due diligence and see what you think. We're always open.
Okay.
That's part of
Your
our,
time.
part of our mission statement, right? Is to develop the highest and finest quality of life for our citizens and our businesses, so. You guys can help us with that, great.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's an exciting piece of property and you
Yeah.
want to be involved in it for sure. Yeah, thanks for your time. All of you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, they did exactly. I was looking forward to say, that seller did that. So I have a full.
Thanks again, Paul.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and take a 10-minute break. Session or S 192-660 property transaction and H potential litigation. So, after a 10-minute break. We are